Welcome, everyone, to Reveal AI in Healthcare, an exciting webinar series where innovation meets empathy and healthcare technology converges with reality. My name is Dr. Salim Afshar, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this revealing journey. In today's world, healthcare is more than a practice. It's a promise. It's a promise to heal, to care, and to innovate. Here at Reveal AI in Healthcare, we pull back the curtains on how artificial intelligence is not merely shaping healthcare, but revolutionizing it. Whether you're a healthcare professional, a technologist, a CEO of a rural hospital, or simply an inquisitive mind, there's something here for you. Over the course of this series, we will uncover the latest advancements, ethical considerations, practical steps that you can take, and inspiring stories that define the intersection of AI and healthcare. Join us as we embark on this exploration, fostering meaningful conversations and building bridges that can lead us to a healthier and more equitable and unified future. Without further ado, let's dive into today's topic, the emerging landscape of AI in healthcare. Our guest today, Dr. Anthony Chang, is a true innovator in the fields of cardiology and artificial intelligence. Dr. Chang has had a distinguished career and currently serves as the Chief Intelligence and Innovation Officer at Children's Hospital of Orange County. He has led the heart failure program, known for several groundbreaking innovations in pediatric cardiac care, and has been recognized as a top cardiologist and top doctor on numerous occasions. With a passion for implementing data science and artificial intelligence in medicine, Dr. Chang founded the Medical Intelligence and Innovation Institute, MI3, and 3 startup companies focusing on AI applications in healthcare. He has authored multiple books and contributed to various international conferences and actively supports innovation in healthcare through various platforms. His visionary work, backed by a rich academic background that includes degrees in healthcare administration, healthcare policy, biomedical data science, and certifications in artificial intelligence, has earned him the nickname of Dr. AI. Welcome, Dr. AI, or Dr. Chang. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Salim. Such a pleasure to see you. And that's quite the preamble there. So I hope I'll deliver my half of the meeting here. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. I think your journey has been really amazing for many people. You have spanned multiple decades thinking about AI in healthcare. And I would love if you could just give us an overview of that journey of AI and how it has intersected.
Well, as with most lifelong passions, it starts in your early years. So I think I just went back to NIH to give a talk there, and just literally within 5 miles of my high school. And I was telling my colleagues there that because they asked me, how'd you get started on this AI journey? And I said, literally like 5 miles from here. In high school, I was the only high school student in my class that was in the math, computer, and chess clubs. So just loved math. And as you know, being a cardiologist, there's no shortage of data and numbers. And I was very lucky in my career that I had a couple of mentors that were not only brilliant clinicians, but were PhDs or experts in complex math. And that just kind of further fueled the fire within me to get involved. And back in the 80s, I was already involved in clinical projects using chaos theory and all these things that are obvious now. Back in the 80s, it wasn't so obvious that using data science in a way for clinical medicine would be very helpful. And I was very blessed with these mentors, and that led to something I call a supercomputer back then. I wasn't calling it AI back then, but a supercomputer that can take a lot of data, all the past historical data, and all the clinicians' expertise, combine it into a sort of a supercomputer that has all the answers to questions that clinicians cannot answer. So it's a 4-decade-long journey for me in AI. So it's wonderful to see AI really come to a real resource now in clinical medicine. It's been a long time waiting for it.
I always appreciate people who are super curious and have the resolve to follow their passions, because today we talk about AI, people are supportive, excited about it. But back when you started, you had to have a lot of resolve to kind of go that path because you were an anomaly in that space. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts regarding, how have you maintained that, passion and curiosity, and how do we continue that at a scalable level for all the people listening today, so that this is not another kind of hype moment for AI.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of patience, calculated patience. On the one hand, technology wasn't at the level that it could deliver the things that we're delivering routinely today. And I'm talking about even before ChatGPT came to the surface. There was already a lot of groundbreaking work in artificial intelligence this past decade or two. Even to give you an idea how nascent this area is, Salim, when I applied to the Stanford program on biomedical data science, they even told me there that it's a little bit early for a clinician to learn about data science and AI to be able to apply it to medicine. This is 12 years ago. So, and they were right. There was not a lot happening. If you did a PubMed search for artificial intelligence and let's say cardiology, there would be just a handful of articles literally every year. And now there are hundreds. So I was definitely there too early, but I wanted to be in that position to absorb and see the evolution of use of data science and AI in clinical medicine from its very, very early beginning. So, it's, I think, if you look at the evolution of music, which is something I'm also passionate about, we didn't start with, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony right off the bat. It started off with Baroque period, Renaissance period. I feel like now we're in the medieval period. So the AI has come along nicely, and we just had another inflection point with ChatGPT and large language models, an exciting inflection point because as opposed to images that we can all relate to, we can relate to language even more. And for humans and computers now to be able to communicate more efficiently is truly exciting and I think groundbreaking in terms of future of AI in clinical medicine and healthcare.
Oh, that's really cool. I like the analogy regarding the music evolution. One of the characteristics there is accompaniment, and you've clearly, the audience will learn you've been early with a lot of different things. And one of them was this idea of starting a conference. Can you tell us a little bit about this conference that you started a decade ago called AI Med?
Sure. I always felt that one of the best ways to learn from other people is to convene the top experts in the field so that we can all learn from each other, especially in a new area. And as you know, you were involved with another meeting that we started here called Pediatrics 2040, thinking about innovation in pediatric medicine. Well, similarly, I figured out that about a decade ago it was a good time to start something on AI in healthcare because there were just early discussions in a few centers about how to use data science and AI in clinical medicine, particularly in the area of imaging, but people were also thinking about other areas as well, even back 10, 12 years ago. But there was no meeting that you can go to where people kind of gathered and convened and talk about, what's new and what projects are ongoing. And so I started a meeting called AI Med or AI Medicine. And to my surprise, it was actually a satellite meeting off of Pediatrics 2040. And I was expecting maybe 50 to 100 people to show up for this satellite meeting. It was on a Saturday. And to my surprise, there were about 300 or 400 people there. So I knew early on, about 10 years ago, that there was already significant early interest or curiosity about how to deploy data science and AI in clinical medicine. And that since that initial meeting, this has really grown to our meeting this year. I think 1,200 people attended. And these are clinicians and data scientists, investors, entrepreneurs, sort of a whole ecosystem that is interested in AI and medicine, all kind of convened. And so it's kind of a mix of academic aspect of this, we had the top centers all represented, as well as the industry side, because in 2023 you have to think about how to implement tools, and the fastest and probably the most efficient way is to leverage industry as our resource to implement artificial intelligence.
It's fascinating. So the first movers, the first 300 people who joined, were primary clinical people. And tell me a little bit more about that first cohort. I would love to.
Yeah, the first cohort were about half clinicians and half data scientists and AI that were curious about coming together, because there are a few centers that are doing AI projects already back then. Mm-hmm. I'm very Stanford centric since I graduated from that program, so I knew what was going on there, but there weren't too many sort of labeled experts in this area, so it was easy to figure out who to invite for that meeting. I think we only had about 20 speakers, so representing from centers all around the world. And looking back now, it's amazing that you could literally name the people that were in the field very easily. And I was sort of a newcomer to this group, and now there are hundreds, if not thousands, of qualified people that can speak on this topic. So, but not many of us were from that early era, so we kind of all got to know each other pretty well, and it was really a very significant movement we felt that we were all part of starting. So, and it's really kind of blossomed now to just thousands of people coming to the meeting.
So let me give some context with this question. 10 years ago, clearly there was a group of unicorns, people coming together who had an interest. But now, 10 years later, right, there's an increase in interest in other players, executives of hospitals, CFOs, CEOs, CIOs, who are facing a massive margin. 2022, I saw a study that more than half the hospitals were in the red, negative margins. So there's a huge interest regarding applying AI to kind of address the margin issue. But you were early, and you were able to connect with executives at your hospital to launch MI3. So tell me about how you've navigated educating and accompanying, right, different classes, different groups of individuals on this kind of common vision.
Well, as you well know from this really well witnessed TED talk on how important it is to have other people join you in a movement of any kind, right? You could have a good idea or a good vision, and if no one else trusts you or believe you, then you're going to be very lonely trying to start something that you think is very special and personal. So I was very lucky that I had not only a donor that believed in my vision of incorporating innovation and intelligence as resources in healthcare, but I also had my C-suite believing in that resource as being the future of healthcare. Back 10 years ago, when nobody was really using the words artificial intelligence and healthcare in the same sentence. So that it was just, faith and trust I was lucky to have from a donor who happens to be Michelle, who happens to be Walt Disney's granddaughter, and who wanted to support something that was new, not the traditional heart or orthopedic institute. And she came to our hospital and said, I want to help support something new that will potentially change, clinical medicine and healthcare for the future. And so that coincided with the first meeting that I organized called Pediatrics 2040, which is about innovative ideas for the future in pediatrics, and which also, by the way, at that time was hardly ever thought about as a way to approach clinical medicine and healthcare. So as with a lot of good things, they kind of all came together nicely in terms of timeline and people, and we launched the institute. I think it was the first of its kind to focus on AI in a health system, and then a few years after that, other hospitals and health systems started having a similar AI focus in an institute or in a center, and it's been a wonderful journey to see all these centers come about. Now I convene centers of AI in medicine. We have now 77, including 27 pediatric centers. So I think everyone in this space really want to share knowledge and insight, ironically, about something artificial, but the humans want to share this insight about the special intelligence that we can use to really help clinicians and healthcare stakeholders to improve patient care, which is ultimately the North Star of using AI in medicine.
Wow, that's so fantastic to hear about how a combination of a donor who wants to do something new, a person with a new vision, and you're able to not only start this institute at your hospital, but be a catalyst for movement for other hospitals and to accompany these systems. I saw a study by Bain where they did a survey of hospital executives, and it said that 75% of hospital system executives believe that generative AI has reached a turning point in regards to reshaping the industry.
Yeah.
But only 6% of hospitals actually have a strategy.
Right.
So what are your suggestions and thoughts regarding helping hospitals and health systems balance driving innovation with ethical governance and privacy concerns, right? Because oftentimes you can imagine it's easy to put the brakes on anything by just saying we have to focus on privacy and safety. But the reality is an effective strategy has to balance both. So I would love to hear your thoughts regarding what you've done at your institution and what your kind of framework is for approaching this.
Well, you're absolutely right that very few health systems and hospitals actually have an AI strategy when I ask. Some do not even have a data or IT strategy. So I think what's good about an AI strategy mindset is that you have to up your game on two other areas, which is data and also your infrastructure for information, your IT infrastructure. So I think those are the foundational layers that you must have for an AI strategy, because AI strategy really relies on good data and good IT infrastructure. And then also obviously personnel. So I'm very lucky that our hospital happens to have, a very, very good IT and data infrastructure. And we have now a small group of data scientists that are at a very senior level to help with projects. So it makes everything a little bit easier. I have the lucky job of being sort of like a clinician AI architect to be able to design projects that my team will help to execute that will impact on patient care. And even difficult areas. There's some really, really challenging areas that I think are very difficult, if not impossible, without some resource like data science and AI to help resolve those issues. I think what's nice about AI and data science is it gives us hope that we can solve some of the traditional challenges in hospitals, both clinically and operationally. So it's going to be an exciting decade. I'm actually very excited to be putting together, I wrote a book called Intelligence-Based Medicine, which talks about AI in theory and concept and application in clinical medicine. But I'm even more excited about the upcoming book on sort of cases of applications of AI in healthcare, down to the data science and the real world deployment of these tools in both clinical and operational aspects of healthcare. So, because I think ultimately people want to know beyond the concepts and the theory is, how these work in the real world of healthcare with the many, many challenges that healthcare presents. So I'm very excited about a real world application book of AI in healthcare.
Yeah, I think it's I absolutely agree with you. Um, one of the concerns I have, however, is around adoption. And there's a level of mistrust in healthcare that's rising amongst providers, right? Doctors and nurses. And I think it has to do with, how can I say, the meaningful use kind of incentives and programs where a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money was spent going through the different stages with very little kind of positive impact, right? Most nurses feel that EHR systems usability is not great. Most doctors feel that the workflow. And so we have a decade where technology really didn't lift healthcare as much as it could have. And now, in the setting of nurses who are retiring, there's massive layoffs. I don't know if you heard about Optum has this hospital urgent care system. They just laid off all the nurses. How do we bridge this gap and build trust back between hospital executives, healthcare technology companies, and the people who use them in the front line?
Yeah, it's the great conundrum in my mind. How do you, overcome the historical dissatisfaction with electronic records that had good to great promise, but fell short in delivering? And I'm hoping that the AI will be the equalizer. And I think it can be and will be. Because I think the electronic record was really for not even for privacy, but it was really for portability of records. And it had promised to deliver more than just documentation. But I think the technology wasn't totally available as it is now. And also, I think people were underestimating the amount of resources we needed to implement. And I think we've learned from those lessons. And I think that's why we're particularly cautious about AI in healthcare in terms of not over promising and under delivering. And I think we need to get over the trust issue for sure. And then that's going to come from, education on the clinician's part, starting early in professional health schools. Mm-hmm. And not just doctors, but nurses, respiratory therapists, pharmacists as well. And I'm very excited that I'm doing that. And the medical students are very hungry for this. They realize that this is their future more than those clinicians are already in practice, that AI is going to be a mainstream resource that they'll have to learn to use. Now, doesn't mean they have to stop, learning anatomy and focus on programming, but it does mean that one way or another, they have to learn about, data science and artificial intelligence. And the way I like to approach this for a medical school is without disrupting or distracting the students from the traditional curriculum. What I do is I take the month's worth of curriculum material and embed data science and AI dimensions into those topics. For instance, if we're talking about retinal anatomy, I'll conveniently bring in how deep learning is similar to the human retina in terms of interpreting an image. If we're talking about treatment for diabetes in the medical school, I'll conveniently bring in how AI and wearable technology is able to manage patients better as outpatients. So there are a lot of convenient places now, because so much has happened in the artificial intelligence area, to basically embed what I call motifs of AI and data science into the present curriculum. And I think and I engage the local faculty so that they don't feel like they're being displaced with the newer topics. So we actually co-teach these topics so that they can learn enough to perhaps eventually teach it on their own as well in terms of the mini topics in AI. So it's been a very exciting journey for me to be able to introduce AI without disrupting the current curriculum. Now, you can question the value of the current curriculum in various aspects, but I'm not going to do that. I want to engage the faculty and have them trust me because I represent something that might be threatening, like artificial intelligence. I want them to trust me as a human being teaching artificial intelligence. And I think so far we've accomplished that in 3 schools, and we're close to signing up another 3 schools. So it's a very, very exciting era of the medical schools now starting to feel that they need to indoctrinate these concepts in the curriculum, and perhaps slowly, and maybe some could criticize it's too slow, but I think I do see movement, and it's been very encouraging.
Well, clearly you're a man of patience, waiting through decades of this.
Well, as you know, to be an innovator, you have to have the duality of having a lot of patience, but at the same time, you have expediency in doing things that are now possible. But it's like a short-term and a long-term vision, right? You have, in a sports analogy, you want to keep scoring runs, even if you're behind, but you know that you're going to win the game somehow because you have a good team, you have a good concept, you have a good philosophy, and you have good leadership, hopefully. So you're going to win the game. It's just a matter of how you get there. So you're right. It's the duality of expediency with patience as an innovator that I think you have to have. Too many innovators have, this gung-ho attitude about getting things done quickly, but they don't go very far. So going fast doesn't mean going far. I've learned the hard way that you have to go fast, but have the resources and the energy and the patience to go far. That's the hard part. So you have to kind of have the short game and the long game at the same time to be a true innovator. So that I've learned decades working on innovation and artificial intelligence.
Well, I think it's really fascinating, this last concept of educating the masses, right?
Yeah.
And you're clearly at the grassroots with medical students. You think the nursing workforce, which is the main workforce of the healthcare system. I'm wondering, how can hospital executives think about how can they empower their current workforce, their nurses, get them excited about what is possible, get them engaged regarding what they think they can do in a very incremental, low risk kind of setting, to be part of the transformation versus just purely a consumer of the transformation, which I feel was the first wave with EHRs. The hospital purchased the EHR system and you just now have to adapt. I'm wondering if the path forward would be more of a co-creation with the workforce that's there.
Well, I think definitely. I'm very proud to be the co-founder and the chair of the American Board of AI Medicine, or ABIM, and we have live courses virtually, but we'll be in person as well. We teach up to about 50 clinicians, including nurses now, at a time. And we've graduated now over 1,000 clinicians in the AI space. And we also give assessments for certification after the courses. There are 1 or 2 day courses at 3 different levels. So the registrations have definitely been steadily going up. And I'm very happy that nurses and respiratory therapists and pharmacists are taking these courses now, as opposed to only a few clinicians a few years ago. So the interest level across the board have actually gone way up. When we first had these courses about 2.5, 3 years ago, it was mainly image focused subspecialists like radiologists and cardiologists would be taking these courses. Now we just did an advanced course a week ago, and we had, in about 45 people, we had at least 30 subspecialties represented. So it's everyone's game now, as opposed to the more image focused subspecialty. So it's truly exciting that I'm seeing publication activity, I'm seeing project activity in all the sub areas, in the subspecialties. And I think it's just kind of like, wearing a different lens, an AI lens, I call it, when you walk around the hospital and look at your job. and look at your patients and see how a new resource, basically a smarter computer, can help you. And I'm not just talking the talk without walking the walk. So I use a large language model to help my practice almost on an hourly basis now. I have my laptop open when I see patients, and when there's a question in my mind that I just need better clarification or a checklist, I will go to a large language model and use it. Of course, I will have oversight over that information. I will check things that I'm not sure about, but it's a wonderful way to really increase your potential, which is what artificial intelligence can do. So it's kind of like having a clinical GPS. It's not going to be 100% correct, but in real time, it should be able to adjust to information that you may not have access to or you have not heard about. It's not unusual now, right? As for any clinician to not know about a medication that one of their patients is on for another disease outside of your subspecialty. It's very common.
Yep.
And I'm not going to be able to keep up with thousands of medications out there. So it's nice to have resources to help you in real time so that you deliver a better quality of service and care for your patients. Ultimately, it comes down to patient care, Salim. I mean, if I wasn't so sure that this can help patient care, I probably wouldn't have the degree of passion that I have. I worry about not enough people using this in the near future, and think about all the opportunities that we could improve patient care that's lost. I lose sleep over that rather than losing sleep over AI doing something that's harmful for patients. Of course, that's a concern always, but I worry much more about not implementing the appropriate AI tool at the right time with enough patients that could benefit from that implementation.
That's a really interesting perspective to have, is reflecting on the nature of our
Very few of us have that. Very
Yeah.
few of us talk about that. But I think more of us should be more vocal about, when we talk about ethics of AI, people are almost always, 99% of the time, talking about the use of AI and how it could be harmful or be a negative consequence. But we almost never talk about the downside of not implementing a useful tool that can help patients and save lives.
Yeah, and it goes all the way through all levels, right? The nature of our responsibility from a executive or C-suite of a hospital to increase access and to improve care. It brings a whole new dimension of reflection regarding that responsibility.
What's the carrot and the stick, right, of AI in healthcare? I think the carrots need to be bigger, but I think the stick is going to get hospitals to implement some tools. I'm already hearing murmurings about health systems being now vulnerable for not deploying an AI tool that led to a negative consequence, a bad outcome for a patient. And patients are a little bit schizophrenic too, Salim, because on one hand, they want doctors and healthcare to be able to use AI that's appropriate. At the same time, they're also concerned that the doctors are using AI for their care. So just like with clinicians, perhaps, you have the duality of the positive and negative aspects of this, and it gets a little confusing and gets people talking, at least. So I think you have to look at the good with the potentially not good. But again, it's a little bit asymmetric right now towards the negative and not enough on the positive.
Yeah, I think in my experience, whenever you have a dichotomous mindset, it's never good, right? There's always a way forward in balance. Now, you've worked with startups and industry. Any advice you have for hospital and health systems as they approach this journey? Clearly, they're not going to be building their own AI models, just too capital resource intensive. And clearly, they shouldn't be buying one product and hoping that this one company will deliver everything. So what are your thoughts regarding effective strategies for them regarding engaging the emerging community?
Well, I'm always known to be a hybrid thinker. So while it's expensive to have your customized AI tools, but I think it is necessary to invest in resources within the hospital. And at the same time, important to see what services you can take off the shelf that perhaps will save development time for your team. But there are going to be projects where you have to really be more hands-on and develop the tool yourself. At least the bigger health systems will need to do that. I think, first of all, I think we always underestimate the time and the resources we need to educate people in the health system on something new. So the AI paradigm is very new. So I'm always shocked at how few C-suite executives actually have a good understanding of the concepts and the applications of AI. So I think what we need to work harder on making sure not just the clinicians, the few enthusiasts, but also our C-suite leaders and nurses on the front lines all have a basic education on artificial intelligence, what it is, what it isn't, how do you take advantage of a resource like this for healthcare, why it's so important for the future. Because as the health systems have more and more data and complex data, we really need help. The humans need help to gather this data and make sense out of the data to improve patient care and to have even care coordination. I just recently had a medical event, fortunately came out fine, but I can't even get my own labs. It's ironic, I'm talking about artificial intelligence, but I can't even get access to my own laboratory data that was done over a weekend. So I think, as I mentioned before, one of the good things about AI is you have to have a way to elevate the game of data, elevate the game of IT in the health system, and if anything, upgrade and improve those areas so that you can serve your patients better and have your clinicians be in a better position to help patients. So, but the AI is ultimately, I think, the way of the future. 80%, according to Becker's now, I was just interviewed by them, 80-some% of C-suite executives believe that AI and analytics is the technology of the future that they need to invest in. So that's changed quite a bit since 5 years ago. It was the other way around. People were still thinking digital health and apps are the way to the future. But if they were to invest in any tech area, they're going to invest in AI and analytics. And it's interesting that they actually separated those two, but they're bundled together under data science and AI. So I'm glad to see that big change in mindset. Now we have to execute on that mindset.
I'm going to take some questions from the audience.
Sure.
There's a question here from Kristen. She's asking about if someone wants to move into the leadership space in AI in healthcare, what is the background you think is necessary? Operational IT. Share your thoughts regarding what your thoughts are. And I've been writing and saying that every institution needs a chief AI officer, and I have my kind of framework of qualities. But I'd love to hear your thoughts regarding.
I've been saying the same thing. It's been very lonely as a chief intelligence officer. There aren't too many more. I can literally count on one hand with fingers left over the number of chief intelligence officers that are in the health system right now, and I know them very well. So what I love to see this decade is hundreds, if not thousands, of AI officers or just a leader in AI in healthcare. And it's a personal journey to get, to the point where you're comfortable being that person. So I do best when I go back to school and have a formal education and build my network, which is what I did. But I don't think everyone needs to do that or can do that. So another way is to take some courses like the ABIM courses I just mentioned. That really gets you going from as they say, from zero to hero. Because a lot of people come into those courses saying, I'm totally not even qualified to take these courses, but they walk away and talking AI speak, So I think being conversant in the language is important. Don't underestimate yourself as a clinician to be able to make a major contribution in AI in medicine, because you bring what's most valuable, actually. to the AI in the clinical medicine space, which is your clinical expertise and wisdom. But particularly seasoned clinicians are really valuable because we're heading from the deep learning computational era of AI towards a more cognitive, more sophisticated AI this decade. So right now it's very heavily computational intelligence. It's not that it's dumb intelligence, but it's computational intelligence. What we need are the clinicians to guide us into the next decade or two, to use their clinical acumen and wisdom to improve on the computational intelligence to what I call cognitive intelligence. So it's an exciting time for clinicians because all the forces are in your favor to get involved. One, the cognitive or the thinking aspect is going to be more and more important, so you bring that to the table. Secondly, it's more accessible than ever before to learn about AI. There are courses, there are a lot of videos. There are articles now being written in everyone's subspecialty on AI deployment. And third, the need to learn programming is going to be less and less. With the advent of large language models, you can actually do simple programming just by instructing it to do so. So we're not far from the day where you can actually set up an AI project by just giving the computer instructions. Something that I kind of dreamt about because I was inspired by Captain Kirk in Star Wars, that he could just ask a computer a question and the answers would just come out. I think we're very close to that for clinical questions as well as operational challenges. So it's a very, very exciting time.
Yeah, I think the operational element of care is going to be probably the first area of use cases. There's a question here regarding what are the early use cases that hospitals can use and try out that are low risk. So I'd love to hear your thoughts regarding that. And, I think there's a lot of space outside of clinical care decision making where people may feel more uncomfortable, but purely around operational efficiency and flow, where AI can give us insights. And that domain is mostly led by managers and nurses. So I think there's another cohort of care that's really critical to healthcare delivery that can be explored. So the question I'm paraphrasing here is, what are some of the easy use cases for organizations to try to implement to see the ROI as well in the short term?
Yeah, I think a very promising area that's already delivered dividends is the use of robotic process automation, or RPA, in performing tasks that are repetitive, that don't require a lot of thinking from human workers. Some of the prior authorization processes, some of the revenue cycle management tasks can and are being taken on by these robotic process automation tools. And it elevates the human worker to perhaps take on a different reconfigured job description that will make their job more interesting. So one fear is always, are we going to replace, human workers with these tools? And I think one approach you can have is just not replace humans that naturally move away or retire, so that you don't replace the human worker. So that's the cost savings there, is you don't have to replace human workers that have departed from your health system. So that's a good return on the investment right there for putting in place these automated tools. But just like, in the banking industry, when ATMs came out, people predicted the end of the branch office and everything. But instead, the branch offices proliferated because now they can think of many other things they can do other than just cashing a check at the teller. So I think I expect similar things in healthcare, where we're going to have much more interesting portfolio of things that humans can do. And it goes for the clinicians too, that will not require the tedious attention that we've been paying to for certain tasks, and it'll be potentially make all of our jobs more interesting.
It's so fantastic. I love that analogy regarding the ATM machines and the kind of insecurity and fear we have.
Yeah.
And I paraphrase this idea that those who don't adopt and don't be flexible are the ones actually at highest risk. Right?
Right.
Um,
As Charles Darwin says, the highest form of intelligence is the ability to change. So if you can't change, then you are going to be at risk, perhaps even being displaced. So I think, I read a lot about technology and its adoption because I get asked so often about AI adoption. If you look at the history of the Model T car when it came out, more than 100 years ago now, Henry Ford really had a tall order, right? Because everyone wanted to be kept to the horse and buggy, and that was predictable, even though it was there were a lot of issues with horse and buggy, and very few were willing to go to the Model T car. And similar to AI, people had to learn to drive for the first time, and just like here, people have to learn about AI for the first time. But the good news is that it's more easy to learn about it than ever before, and it doesn't have to be coupled to programming, which was a big, I think, deterrent to learn about AI. And even when I was in school, more than a decade ago, I was told that within a decade or two that no one will be required to learn about programming because it'll be just automated to the human language. And we're getting close to that. We already have some ways that you can do projects without having to program line by line. It was very tedious. And it was ironic because I was learning about AI and I'm thinking, well, we need AI for the AI because it was so tedious, and there were very frustrating moments that I'm sure every programmer can relate to, where you happen to miss a comma in a line and the whole thing cannot be easily executed because why do you have to go through that, angst to do AI? So I think the level of angst is going to be less and less to do AI, which is so exciting that you don't have to learn how to program. You don't have to, very soon, you just bring your clinician mindset and wisdom. And that's actually the most valuable asset in AI and healthcare for the coming decades, not the ability to program. So, and you're going to have to spend a couple of thousand hours to program to get really good at it. So very few clinicians are willing to spend that kind of time right now. So the good news is that you won't have to. Please join the AI and healthcare movement, or whatever you want to call it, because it is the best hope we have for the future.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
Really excited to have had you as our first guest on this webinar series. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today in this exploration as we continue to unveil kind of the intricate layers of AI in healthcare. Today, we talked about some of the practices of the past, some of the solutions maybe in the future. It's really about reshaping our global health landscape and increasing access. If you found today's program inspiring, please don't hesitate to share with others and to reach out to us if you would like to continue the conversation. I want to thank everyone again for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Chang, for joining us. And until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay connected. Thank you.